Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to do a reaction video to a natural hypertrophy video in regards to the Hamza video that came out not too long ago. Now, I actually covered that Hamza video on my channel and I gave you guys my opinion on what he is telling you in regards to losing weight and in regards to building muscle. So today I wanted to go ahead and do a reaction video on natural hypertrophy's response to that video because I thought it would be very beneficial to you guys. Let's hop over to that natural hypertrophy video and talk about what he has to say. How bad is Hamza's fitness advice? 5 biggest reasons you can't gain muscle.
And welcome to this new video with an extra comfy setting. So I'm certain that if you clicked, it's because you know who Hamza is and you most likely watch him. I personally caught a few of his videos.
Just for future reference, he mentioned if you do click on the video, on Hamza's on this video, that means you follow Hamza or you might know who he is. I didn't know who Hamza was until Coach Greg did a video on it, and I saw Coach Greg's response video to that. So before this, I had no clue who Hamza was, and I do subscribe to his channel now, although I am finding that the content that he has on there is not very beneficial to me to consume. So, you know, it is what it is.
The number one reason why you cannot build muscle according to Hamza is because you refuse to walk. Many young men spin their wheels for years and years staying skinny and they wonder why. And the reason why is because, like Hamza says, they are deathly afraid of putting on weight, which is stupid because if you want to put on muscle, you have to put on weight. If you don't do that, you're going to waste years of muscle building potential. The very reason why this idea is put in young men's head in the first place is because many YouTubers have realized that if you tell people that they can gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, that's extremely attractive. This is the type of things that is...
The problem that I'm seeing, and I addressed this in the last video, in the response video to Hamza that I did, I addressed the fact that many, whether you're young men, like he's talking about young men, or older men, I don't care who you are, what your age is, many people don't seem to realize when it is necessary to cut weight or gain weight or stay at the same level. Many people don't understand that. And many people also don't understand that the amount of food that they intake is should be directly correlated with the amount of intensity that they are training at. So if you have a goal, and right now you're eating at a normal level of food, and let's say you're not in a place where you are overweight, you have a normal body fat percentage, and you're healthy and you feel good, at that point in time, do you need to cut weight? No, you can just simply start training, right? And once you start training, you're going to see the growth. Once you start training, you're going to get more hungry. Once you start training, you need to understand that if you're pushing yourself harder, you need to eat more. And also, if you decide to increase your calories because you want to do a bulk of any kind, whether it's a small bulk or a huge bulk, okay? So as long as you intend on increasing your caloric intake, you need to understand that if you don't train harder after increasing all those calories, however many calories it is, if you don't train harder, you're just getting fat. You're not actually gaining anything at that point. You're simply gaining weight. So you need to make sure your training intensity matches the caloric intake that you're intaking. The calories need to work for something. You don't want to just arbitrarily put on more fat to your body, because that in itself isn't going to help you. The bulk is not what builds muscle. It's the training intensity and then fueling that intensity and replenishing that intensity with the calories. Does that make sense? Many people don't get that they're not in a place where they need to cut. So you had Hamza, who is over here trying to cut weight at 130 pounds, well, clearly you didn't need to cut. You didn't need to ever cut at that weight. So no wonder you're not making any progress. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's a big problem. People think they need to cut when they don't need to cut. And that may have to do with up here. Maybe you don't understand how thin you actually are, how much you actually weigh, what's healthy and what's not.
It's going to make people want to click. But of course, it's completely incorrect. It's not how it works. Hamza calls them dickheads. I think that he's being generous. Usually what these types do is, they know full well you want to be aesthetic and big, but they also know that you have an obsession with leanness and a six-pack. You want to be aesthetic and shredded. So what they do is, they promise you can get both. Of course, you cannot get both. Even they couldn't get both. Most of the people who push that idea of men gaining are people on steroids. Hamza cites great...
Right. Now, you got to also keep in mind, I personally have never heard anyone who used the idea of main gaining, meaning I have a six-pack all the time and I'm building muscle at the same time. Personally, I don't know about you. Personally, I haven't heard that. I have not heard that. I've heard you can stay at a normal body fat percentage and gain weight from there, gain muscle from there. That I 100% agree with. I do. Because you don't need to become overly heavy by any means, in my personal opinion and experience, in order to gain muscle. You don't. You can be at a regular body fat percentage. You don't need to become fat, like sloppy, or obese. So I've never heard anyone actually say, yeah, you can be shredded and build muscle. I haven't heard that yet. So keep that in mind. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the comments.
Greg Doucette was pointed out and singled out as one of the people that promoted men gaining, which made many young men get absolutely no results whatsoever. It could work if you recomped, but many young men don't have what it takes to recomp, so it's not something they should follow. It would be the equivalent of trying to build a clay statue and wanting to make it as big as possible, but also at the same time refusing to add more clay. You quickly understand.
Right. What he's saying is accurate. You can't build a clay statue and continue building it if you use the same amount of clay and you're not adding more clay, right? 100%. But the problem is most people don't understand when they're at a point that they actually need to gain weight. So the bulk and cut theory, or the main gaining theory, I don't even think is the issue at this point. I think the issue is the fact that people don't understand when they're healthy and when they're not. And when you're at a healthy weight, a normal weight, a weight that you can maintain comfortably and you're not spilling over, well, when you're at that weight, you don't need to cut. You don't. So at that point, I think that's where the disconnect is. Unless, of course, there are people out there saying you can stay completely ripped, completely shredded all the time, and you can also still put on muscle. Can you? Well, it depends on your genetics, it depends on how hard you're training, and it also depends on how slowly you want to build muscle. Because at that point, when you're so lean, it's going to take you a very long time to build muscle. Is it impossible? No, nothing is impossible, but it's very unlikely you're going to make substantial gains. You might maintain, or you might lose muscle, but really you need to understand when it's appropriate to cut. Hamza was not in a place where he needed to cut, and he also mentioned in his video, he did not know whether he was cutting or maintaining. He didn't know. That's a huge difference, in my opinion. Huge difference. Cutting and maintaining, huge difference. He didn't know. He said I was either cutting or maintaining. He didn't know. So if you don't know how many calories you're intaking because you're not properly tracking them, and you have no clue whether you need to gain or lose weight because you don't have a good concept of where you're at in your training, well, that's not anybody on YouTube's fault necessarily, in my personal opinion.
That this means your statue is going to stay small and puny for the rest of time, so you absolutely have to get up in weight. However, he actually actively says in the video that men who want to get bigger need to focus on building muscle before getting lean, and that's absolutely correct, even for a six-pack. I know it's surprising to hear. If you want a nice six-pack, getting shredded won't cut it. You need to build.
As far as that, if you want a nice six-pack, getting shredded won't cut it, you need to build a six-pack. Well, it depends on what you want your six-pack to look like. Because I don't train abs, and I've never trained abs. I might have trained abs for like 2 weeks back when I was like 14. And I realized it wasn't helping me to actually get a six-pack because I had fat on me, right? So I didn't understand at that point that you can't train your muscles to come through your fat. You have to lose weight. So I stopped training abs, and I still don't train abs, and I still have abs. So I'm sure those 2 weeks of training abs back in the day had no actual effect on my abs today. I really don't think so. You can always just get more bulky. Your abs can get more bulky. But personally, I don't do ab work, and I have abs. So maybe if you genetically have, abs that you don't particularly like, you can train them to be bigger. Of course you can. But it's not a definitive answer that you must train your stomach muscle in order to see it. Because everyone's muscles are different, everybody's bodies are different, everyone's genetics are different, and therefore, the walking around having a tight stomach when you're walking, the other training that you're doing that clearly you need to have good stability for, so you're tensing your abs, may be enough to the point where, okay, I have enough muscle on my stomach, enough definition, I'm very, very happy with my abs, and that's it. So I just wanted to point that out.
The abdominal muscles then get lean, that's how it's done, but not the other way around. If you want to stay lean forever, you will never build muscle, and therefore you will never actually get big. So that's excellent. However, I have an issue with the way Hamza presents it, because it seems to me like he's saying that the majority of YouTube fitness promotes men gaining. That's not true. There are only a few people who do. Just because these people have a ton of visibility does...
Correct. Hamza said that he doesn't follow YouTube fitness. But at the same time, in the same breath, he's saying, well, YouTube fitness is the ones who misdirected me on what to do. And he's also saying that a majority, just like Natural Hypertrophy is saying, a majority of YouTube fitness is promoting this idea. 100% correct. They are not. Only certain people are. And so Hamza clearly does watch YouTube fitness and claims he doesn't. Which then brings me to a realization that he wants to make it look like he's the only person on YouTube giving you the proper information. But that's not true. You have tons of channels who promote proper and other points of view. I'm not just going to say proper because everybody works different under certain circumstances. Everyone is different. Everyone's an individual. But he's not the only one stating this.
Does not mean that they are the majority. But I personally refuse to be put in the same bag as Greg said, as I believe it to be unfair. There are many people, me included, who have been warning people about the men gaining meme, who have been trying to introduce nuance into the debate. If Hamza doesn't know that, and he thinks that he discovered that men gaining is shit, he needs to take a step out of his own comfort zone and echo chamber, because many channels are aligned with that message as well. Of course, if you only watch mainstream fitness, you won't know that. Let's move on to number 2, the second reason why.
And I just want to say, I think I covered it very well in my last video. I'm not telling you that you can be single-digit body fat and go making tons of progress. But cutting and building at the same time is not impossible. It depends on where you're at in your training and in your caloric intake. Are you healthy already? Many people trying to cut and build at the same time are already too skinny. So you have to understand whether or not you're too skinny. I don't recall any YouTube fitness influencer, unless I am wrong, I could never have seen certain videos telling you that you can be so skinny and build from there. I feel like there's a disconnect and people don't understand whether or not they're too skinny. And if they don't understand that, there's no realistic place for them to start knowing whether or not they need to lose or gain weight. Does that make sense?
You are not building muscle. It's because, according to Hamza, you fell for the bulking meme. So at first he tells you not to cut, he tells you to bulk and to not main gain, then he tells you that bulking is also bad. So what the fuck does he want? Well, I think that what he wants is, he wants you to think with nuance. And again, I'm pleasantly surprised because it is very common for YouTubers to be black or white, to pick a team, to be dogmatic, because many people like it. Many people don't like to be told to use their brains. They want to be told exactly what to do and how to live their lives. That's not how to become a man. If you want to become a man, you want to have critical thinking.
I don't care about how to become a man. I'm not going to talk like that. And hopefully I'm not just talking to men out there. Everybody has a way that works for them. Everybody is different. So is that how you become a man? Oh, this isn't like a man channel. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit here trying to look like an alpha male or something like that. At the end of the day, different things work for different people. I covered that in my last video also. So different things work for different people. Everybody's approach will be different and needs to be different because you are an individual. Certain people need to train a certain way because they have injuries, because of genetics, because of their own personal preference. And therefore, you must tailor your training and your caloric needs to you. And a lot of people don't like to hear that because a lot of people want to know how many reps, how many sets, how many calories, how much should I weigh, and all this stuff. It's all very individual. And if anybody is giving you a specific number, like Hamza mentioned in his other video, 180 pounds at 5'7", well, you are completely misleading people because that is not an accurate representation of everybody. And that's not even like a general representation of everybody. Again, at 5'6", at 180 pounds, I was fat. And according to Hamza, I was good. So, you got to pick and choose what you listen to and then tailor it to you. Take some good information from the person, Get rid of the stuff that doesn't apply and test different things out in order to see whether or not it works for you, your goals, and your training.
Skill, and Hamza is attempting to get you to think critically by making you understand nuances. So what looks like a counterintuitive message of don't bulk but also don't cut is not that. He's actually telling you that if you want to gain muscles, you are going to have to select a mode of eating that is going to be aligned with that goal. And that is an excellent message because something that works for someone doesn't work for another. Example, I've just been recomping for 3 years.
Perfect. What he just said, what works for somebody doesn't work for another. I think before I pause it, he said he's been recomping for 3 years. That's fantastic. That means he was very heavy before, right? I went from 210 pounds down to, at my lowest, 145 pounds, and I was able to build muscle through that entire process and maintain muscle. I trained very, very hard, and I took training and sleeping, recovery in general, eating, I tried my very, very best to be on top of all of it. So recomping is possible. You just have to have enough fat on you. Cutting and building at the same time, recomping, right? It's possible. And again, everybody's definition of recomp is different. So, in general, by recomp, I mean losing weight, gaining muscle, same time.
It worked beautifully for me because I had what it took to recomp, aka fat. If someone like Hamza attempted to recomp, he would have stayed small. So that's an excellent message once again. Hamza even gives you clear numbers. He tells you to bulk up to 180. And that again is nuanced, okay? He's not telling you to stuff your face to get to 180 as fast as possible. He's telling you to set a respectable goal, a body weight goal, and then train and eat to reach that goal by gaining muscle. That's what he meant.
So if that's what he meant, then I think that's better than how I took it. But I don't think that is how most people probably took it. I think most people just heard him say, yeah, you should be this weight and this height around that area. But he never talked about body fat percentage. He never talked about, any of that. So it's very, very vague as to what you need to do. And in general, I don't agree with that anyway. How can you possibly tell me that I need to be thick as a man and be this size and this weight? Come on, bro. Listen, everybody's goals are different. Everybody gets those goals differently. Many people don't want to be thick. I don't want to be thick. What's thick? What's thick? What's 180 pounds? How much muscle? How much fat? So you see what I'm saying? You're throwing out random numbers. Eat and train for your goals. And, take in what's good from people and then spit out the rest.
By the bulking meme, many people stuff their face for the sake of getting bigger. I was one of them, and they just end up fat. Being fat is not aesthetic, so that's excellent. There is no universal answer, and young men that look for a universal answer will usually end up following mainstream fitness channels with fitness gurus that will feed you that answer, an answer that tends to be bullshit, and you end up yo-yoing between extreme cuts, extreme bulks, or sticking to one and the other and never getting the physique of your dreams. He also brings up the fact that, yes, a calorie is a calorie in terms of energy, but not in terms of quality. However, once again, Hamza seems to think that he discovered that. He even goes as far as to say that he never heard anyone on YouTube.
Yes, Hamza says he never heard anyone on YouTube talk in terms of, a calorie is just a calorie and there's no nutritional difference, which is completely not true, and I mentioned that in my video as well. There is plenty of people on YouTube who tell you there's a difference from calorie to calorie, macro to macro, and all that stuff. Quality food will give you quality results. Garbage food will give you less desirable results. But can you run off of both? Of course you can. And can you find a balance between the two? Of course you can. Hamza seems to think that he's the only one out there talking about this, and that tells me that the only person he watches is Coach Greg. And if he does watch other people who say the same thing, he's simply not telling you that other people say the same thing, making it look like he knows better than everybody else. So one or the other, in my opinion.
Bro, we've been saying this for years. I don't know what type of schmuck you follow, but the only people who are not there yet are people that are laughing stocks, pretty much. The dudes who say that the calories in an apple and the macros in an apple are the same as the calories and the macros in a candy, again, are clowns to make fun of these people because they understand absolutely nothing of nutrition. This is an issue I'm seeing with Hamza, and it's going to repeat itself and get much worse for the video. And that is that he really does look like he thinks he discovered warm water, or as I put it, he has this not like the other girls mentality, where he really wants you to think that he's the good guy and he's the one giving good advice, and anyone and everyone else is just giving shit advice, and that's simply not true. Everything that Hamza says, people...
Right. Everything Hamza says, I think he's about to say this, other people have said. So whether it's good advice or bad advice, other people have said it. He's not the only one saying it. And again, he claims to not watch fitness, YouTube Fitness. Clearly, that's not the case.
Who have been saying on this platform for 10 years plus. And if you discover them through Hamza, that's great, but understand that he didn't invent them.
No one will ever know everything. Trial and error is always necessary, especially because we're all individuals. And there are many people out there who don't know too much, but they know enough and feel like they know everything. And so then they talk to people with confidence. They tell them what they want to tell them or what they want them to believe. And you could be brainwashed by people like that. And they may not really know what they're talking about. So it's very important to individualize your training for what you want from it to hit your goals. I would not, again, I mentioned this in the last video, I would take everything Hamza says with a grain of salt, a couple of grains of salt, because I disagree with a lot of what he says in certain regards. And then you also have some good advice too.
It's sort of letting his ego get in the way of his ability to learn new things, and we'll come back to that because it gets very relevant the more we move on. But so far as points, it's good, okay? Point 1, point 2, I am in full agreement with. So let's move on to the third advice. The third advice and the third point that Hamza brings up is that if you're not putting on muscle and getting muscle, it's because your testosterone level is low. And you know, when I was watching the video, I sort of knew what Hamza was and who he is, and so I understood that at some point shit was going to hit the fan. It was like watching a horror movie where you know.
I agree. When I heard him say testosterone, all right, fine. Yes, it makes sense, right? If you have low T levels and you're not healthy, you're not going to gain that much muscle. You're not going to have enough energy or strength. You're not. But is this the reason why you are not? Probably not. And I think I touched on that in the last video. Does what Hamza say make sense? Yes, but it's also a cop-out. It's a cop-out because a majority of people are not gonna have low test levels. Okay? Unless you're like dieting down, competition, stage ready form, or something along those lines, or you have some kind of a disease, or you never sleep, or something like that, and you're eating like complete trash, and you're like on the verge of dying, unless that's the case, well, your T levels should be just fine. Therefore, it's other reasons why you're not gaining muscle. That testosterone thing that Hamza threw in there, is it true? Yes. But it's also kind of like filler. Kind of just like, yeah, I'm covering all the bases as to why you're not gaining muscle, so that if you think you're doing all the other stuff that I'm saying correctly, well, then it's your testosterone, which I would disagree with on a very, very large level. Most people's testosterones are perfectly fine.
I find it extremely ironic that Hamza would conclude the bulking section of his video by saying that no one tells you the truth and he's the only one saying the truth, and that no one tells you to eat clean because it's not sexy and doesn't get clicks, then immediately segues into the biggest fitness bait of the past 2 years. And that is nowadays, whenever a man is not getting the results that he wants because he's skinny or because he is not jacked in 2 years or 3 years, the first answer that you see from people like Hamza is because he has low test. And Hamza is not the worst with that, but I just want to point out that this has been...
Right. Many people are like, yeah, if you're not jacked in a certain period of time, maybe your testosterone's low. Well, it could be your genetics, it could be your training, and it's probably every single other thing before the testosterone. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in my last video also. It is probably every single other thing. In fact, Hamza's original video, I remember summing it up because I did 2 parts. I did the diet and nutrition part, and I separated it to the bodybuilding part, right? In the diet, nutrition, in the bodybuilding part, I actually said to you guys, this is really the only stuff, in my opinion, that is all that relevant. This is really what you should be looking at. The fact that you're probably not training properly. All the other stuff is very likely not the reason that you're not gaining muscle.
And usually trends are not good. This trend is something that masculinity gurus like to use because they play off of your insecurities. You don't feel good in your own skin. So what they do is they offer a reason. They offer a boogeyman, and this boogeyman is your test levels. The issue is that this boogeyman is something that is still within you. So you still feel bad because you're still the one who is not man enough biologically. You're not able to produce the hormones. And then they come up with the solution. The solution can come in 2 forms. One, it can come in the form that Hamza gives most of the time, which is lifestyle changes. If someone tells you that your test levels are low and they can boost it, if they tell you that the only way to boost it is to training, diet, sleep, etc., you can listen to them, okay? It might not be fully accurate, but at least it's not dangerous. The ones that I want you to pay attention to are the ones who make you pay for it, who make you buy pills, test boosters.
100% right. Hamza, last time I checked, is not selling test boosters. So if he tells you need to change your lifestyle and all that stuff, hey, I think that makes sense. You probably do need to change your lifestyle. I have many people who break their bodies down through training and then they don't sleep or they don't eat any protein. So lifestyle changes, like I mentioned in a million videos already, you must build new habits which equal to a new lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's not training for a certain period of time. It's making a new lifestyle in general. That is what is going to help you overall to achieve your goals. So very, very important. And Hamza, last time I checked, is not selling anything, right? So just like NH over here is mentioning, you can trust him to a degree. It may not be fully accurate because, he might say, oh, well, you probably have low test, and you really don't. You're just not training right. But at least he's not promoting anything bad and trying to steal money out of your pocket. You know what I mean? Or causing you to think, oh, I must be sick or something like that.
But the fact that he presents low test levels as a reason why you are not getting jacked is a problem, in my opinion, because most often that is not true. Most often that is used as an excuse to justify the lack of results that you are responsible for. And young men get tested, realize that they have low T, and they jump on TRT, which is the dumbest thing because they never fix their lifestyle. From what I know.
Right, and I've mentioned in a couple of videos in the past, your lifestyle needs to change before you ever say, oh, I have low testosterone and I need to go take HRT or something like that. Even before testosterone boosters, something over the counter, some ridiculous waste of money and time, you should be looking at your lifestyle. 100% correct. That is key. Many people think, oh, it couldn't be my lifestyle. It must be something bigger. It's really not. Most of the time.
Again, Hamza doesn't encourage people to do that. He tells people to stay natty, and again, that is good. But also don't fall for the mistake of hyper-focusing on your test levels. It's a waste of time. Nowadays, I see too many young men who point out to the past and say, well, that guy in the 60s looked jacked natty, but it's because he had better tests than me, so I look like shit and it's not my fault. Bogus. People in the...
I agree. 100% bogus. Don't listen to that stuff. That's a cop-out. You're looking for an excuse to hop on drugs. Don't make excuses for the reasons that you're not training and living properly. Focus on that stuff first and give it the amount of time and effort and energy that it deserves. If you want quality results, they're not going to come in 2 weeks.
And move on to number 4. Number 4, which according to Hamza is that you don't train hard enough. Because you don't train hard enough. I've heard that times and times again. What exactly does Hamza think training hard means? Greg Lucen, for example, has his own definition of training hard that many people disagree with. So what exactly is Hamza going to tell us about training hard? Well, I'm not going to spoil it for you.
It's very important to put the blame on yourself. That's important. You have to take responsibility. You don't want to sit there and be like, oh, well, it's this reason why I'm not progressing, and then shift the blame. Because, again, like he just mentioned, well, that might lead to some bad practices. Oh, well, now I need drugs because, my body's not good enough or whatever. But have a realistic idea. You have to have a very well-balanced, realistic idea. You might have people out there who are underweight who think, oh, I'm fat. Only you can fix that. And maybe you need to pay a professional to tell you whether that's true or not or whatever. But make sure you do that. You need a realistic idea of who you are and what you're doing as far as training, as far as eating and all that stuff in order to determine what steps need to be taken next.
Because according to Hamza, you're not training hard enough. And to prove it, he offers an experiment. So the experiment is very simple. You go to the gym, and instead of doing multiple sets, you do only one. According to him, again, you should find that you're able to do more reps on that one set, as opposed to if you did multiple sets, which in his head means that high-volume workouts with multiple exercises and sets take away from your ability to push yourself. This mindset is flawed. This works for 2 reasons. The first reason is that regardless of the amount of sets that you do on this given day, set 1 is still set 1. Meaning that if you're able to do more reps with the same weight, it's on.
All right, so NH goes into a whole big explanation as to why Hamza is wrong as far as training. I believe that NH is under the impression, because Hamza was not very specific, but I believe NH is under the impression that Hamza said to do like a 1 set to failure deal, and that's it. But what I heard from Hamza was try this experiment. Go to the gym and do as many reps as you possibly can to determine whether or not on all the other days you're pushing yourself hard enough. That's what I heard, and that's what made sense to me. And I believe that's a good idea to do. I believe it makes sense to do that, to determine whether or not in general, on all the other days where you're taking all of your sets, your multiple sets to failure, to determine whether you're actually taking them to failure or not. So I believe NH may have misunderstood, or maybe I am misunderstanding Hamza. If Hamza said to go to the gym and just do one set to failure and then you're done and go home, well, I would completely disagree with that. But if you want to go to the gym, warm up a little bit, and then push yourself until you can't push anymore, and take your set to failure to show you what failure actually is, well, I don't see anything wrong with doing that. That is going to show you how far can I push my body, and that's how far you should push your body on every single set. You're doing multiple sets, hopefully, when you go to the gym, right? Especially depending on your goal.
Yes. Let me again use the same example that Hamza used. Example 1, you come in and do 4 sets. Example 2, you do 1 set. In both cases, set 1 is still set 1, meaning that there was no set to precede it. So nothing to fatigue you. So the sets that come after it cannot be blamed in terms of physiology. They can be blamed, however, in terms of psychology, meaning that it's possible that you know in your head that you have more sets to do, and therefore you sandbag, meaning that you don't go as hard as you could on purpose on set 1 to be able to survive the following.
So I think NH is saying that you can go ahead and prevent yourself from doing the most possible if you have multiple sets. You can save sets, save energy to complete your mandatory sets, which when compared to using the other example where you can go on that bench, push as much as possible until you are done. Yeah, but I would never ever think that someone could just simply do one set to failure and think that they're good. Anybody who says that, I don't personally believe they know how to train, or I feel like there's a lot more they need to understand about training. I'm fairly certain that Hamza simply meant to test to see if in general you're training to failure. You must learn what failure is. So take a set to failure, complete failure to understand whether or not you were at failure. So then when you go back to the gym the next time, or even later that day, or later the same session, when you're doing your sets, you know how hard you're pushing on a set per set basis based on the intensity that you put in during that experiment.
Hamza never clearly states the goal of the experiment. He just tells you that it's going to make you understand what intensity is. But I want to make you understand that if what you took from his advice is that you have to do only one set, you are doing it wrong. The second reason...
Absolutely right. If what you took from Hamza is that you only need to do one set, you are wrong. That's not what Hamza meant, in my opinion. I think he was giving you an experiment. He said try this or test this out, something like that. Therefore, I think he was just trying to get you to learn what pushing yourself actually is. Just like I've shown you guys in the past how hard you should be training, in my personal opinion. And I use my face as a gauge to be like, look, I'm not smiling and happy and feeling energetic right now. I'm getting tired and exhausted, and my face is like, you know? That using your face as a gauge to kind of tell, am I doing this to an effective level, or am I sitting there like, you see many people in the gym sitting there like this. They're doing their reps. Like, what are you even doing right now? So it makes sense to say that that person going like this is not working as hard as the other guy like this, and pushing through. So
Set 1 are more anabolic and hypertrophic than the 30 reps combined of the...
So NH is getting into like a territory right now where he's like breaking. He might as well be doing chemistry in my book right now because it's like so much to track. I recommend you guys pushing to your max after your warm-up, during your working sets. Push to your max as much as you can to failure for every single set that you can do until you need to leave the gym. Now, if you have the entire day off and you don't mind staying the whole day in the gym, am I telling you to be there all day? No, I'm not. I would recommend, probably, don't take these numbers as gospel. I'm giving you an example. If you're doing a workout for like an hour and a half, maybe hit like 7 or 8 sets completely to failure. Depending on your rep ranges, the weights you're using, your goals and all that stuff. So, very arbitrary number that I just threw out there, but I'm trying to explain to you that every set should be taken to failure. Every set should be as intense as possible. Even if you take sets out of the equation, imagine there's no such thing as sets. You're only doing reps. You get on that bench or you do, whatever you pick up that weight. You push as intensely as possible until you cannot, go anymore. Where you fail, okay? If your rep range is 12 reps, you should fail at that 12th rep and not be able to push more. That's how I train, and I just keep doing that. Don't be like, I need to do 5 sets, so I'm going to only do half the energy on the first and the second and third, and then push the last one to failure or whatever. That's my personal opinion. At this point in the video, Hamza was saying during your test workout to find out what failure is, keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, millimeter by millimeter by millimeter. Don't give up. Push, push, push. He's going crazy explaining to you, don't give up. The point is to find out what failure is. I'm not sure if natural hypertrophy understands that that's what he's talking about here, but that's what I got from it. What did you guys get from it? He's not telling you, this is what you need to do all the time. It's to learn what failure is for your other workouts, not this test phase.
If you get 10 reps and then you can psych yourself and get 2 more reps, guess what? You are sandbagging. The 10 reps you were doing before was you not putting in 100%. So if that is the message of Hamza, then good. Because it means that he's telling people that they have to learn how to train to failure. But the hocus-pocus nonsense that surrounds the advice and the...
Right. I think that's what Hamza's message was. You have to learn to train to failure. But that you don't have to do that, push, millimeter, every single time you train. So I think he was trying to teach you what failure is so you can then take that and apply properly the intensity into your normal everyday routine.
It is very prevalent in Hamza's training advice, where he tells you to grind your teeth, that if you don't feel pain or if you don't suffer, it's not going to do anything, you won't actually...
All right, so NH is over here saying, oh, well, Hamza's telling you to grind your teeth if you don't feel pain. Listen, to each his own, right? I'm not telling you have to go in the gym and be like, and start screaming. Everybody's different. Some people don't scream, some people don't grunt, some people do. Some people are just looking for attention, but the people who make those noises normally, like me, I'm a very loud trainer. When I get to, pushing myself till I can't really go anymore, that's when I start to get loud. That comes naturally. But that's a good determination on whether or not you're actually putting effort. Go try to push a wall and move that wall. Go ahead. Go to the wall and try to push the wall. If you're really trying, your face is not going to stay flat the whole time. You're going to be like, ah! That's the effort. You have people in the gym who go over to their weights and they're just like, and they're done. Look at the way Arnold trains back in the day, right? Hamza showed you a clip of the way Arnold trained. He had the 3 chins. He was like, ah! Do you have to do that? No. But it's a good gauge on how hard you're pushing yourself. Does that not make sense? Maybe I'm misunderstanding what NH is saying, but it makes sense to me that if you're training hard and you're pushing yourself hard, that you're going to be not looking pleasant.
Gain muscle.
Hypertrophy to build muscle. You're going to tear your fucking muscle. You're going to tear it. It's deeply painful. If you do a set and you don't have this like painful, terrified look on your face, like, you're probably not gaining that much muscle, honestly. You're probably not training that hard.
All of that is emotion. All of that is not logical. There is no logic.
I don't agree with that. It's not emotion. You screaming is not emotion. Unless you're looking for attention or like you have some kind of like emotional problem. But when I'm lifting something heavy and my muscles are burning, but I'm pushing myself beyond the pain, well, grunting starts to happen. Pain starts to happen. You should be in some kind of discomfort while training. That's why a lot of people don't train, because it's uncomfortable for them. When I train, I love it. But when you really think about what I'm doing, you're putting yourself through a workout. You're putting yourself through some sort of distress. Training is not normal, right? You're ripping your muscles down. So if you're ripping your muscles down and you're pushing yourself to failure, well, you certainly shouldn't be smiling like la-di-da-di-da. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not really sure where NH is coming from over here, but I wanted to throw that in I might be misunderstanding what he's saying, but I just wanted to point that out. Don't think you can just be like pushing yourself to the limit and just be like this with a blank face, like, come on. Look at people doing heavy squats. People, even if you have light weights and like you've done 100 reps on a light weight, your muscle's going to be burning and hurting. So you're going to have to kind of release that through and that is directly correlated with the intensity. So I don't know.
Logical connection between pain felt in the muscle and hyperbolic response within that same muscle. Keep in mind that intensity is first and foremost a number. That is all it is. Whatever else is there, the sensation in the gym is just that. It's just a sensation. You can scream as much as you want. You can get red in the face. It does not mean that you're being intense. What matters is...
I would disagree. I mean, if you're looking for attention, then yeah, you can just scream all day. But if you're genuinely pushing yourself, again, go push the wall. Go push the wall. I'm not talking about just like, go try to move the wall. Or if you have a barbell crushing your chest and you are pushing to get that barbell off, you might die if you don't push that barbell off, right? You're on that bench. That barbell is coming down. If you don't get that barbell back up on the rack, you will die. Are you telling me you're not going to be screaming? Why? It's directly correlated to the intensity that you're pushing. So it's helping you to release what you're doing. This comes from someone who is noisy. So maybe NH isn't a noisy trainer. In my mind, if you're taking your reps to failure, you should not have a pretty face on at all. Because if you do, you're probably not training hard enough.
Is the weight you lift in relation to the maximum amount of load that you can lift. It starts and ends there. And to me, this also indicates that Hamza is not 100% on point when it comes to that concept, because he tends to promote the idea that ramming out reps and doing a ton of reps is a good thing because it's painful and it gets you to your limits. But all of that, for the most part, just means...
I don't know. I didn't get that from what Hamza said. NH said that, Hamza promotes doing a ton of reps to get to a pain point in order to get progress. I didn't get that from what he said at all. Doing a ton of reps to get that pain point. Yeah, maybe during the test phase. If he was talking about a test phase to push yourself to failure, to understand what failure is, then yes. That's what he was saying. But that was only for the test, from what I understand. I don't think Hamza ever said to go doing like 50 reps per set.
That you're getting a pump. Right? All of these painful sets that you pull through and you struggle and you see all of these bodybuilders do, that is for the pump, that is it. And we know that the pump is not a good indicator of muscle growth. So all of that is really just warrior speech.
I did not hear Hamza talk about a pump at all. Maybe I missed something. But I didn't hear Hamza say anything about, you're chasing a pump. He was telling you to do a test to find out what failure is. When I'm taking my sets to failure, I'm not looking for a pump. If I was looking for a pump, I'd be using like half the weight, looking to get like 20 reps, 25 reps. I'd be chasing a pump. I would use like a tension band. You know what I'm saying? I didn't hear Hamza say that. Hamza said that he likes a certain rep range between 10 and 15. Is 10 and 15 chasing a pump? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Of course, it depends on the workout that you're doing. Are you doing legs or are you doing biceps? Two completely different muscle groups. But I did not hear him ever tell anyone to chase a pump.
But you're only going hard as theatrics. You're not actually going hard, which is interesting because Hamza's whole point is that you don't train hard enough, but then he offers you a method that...
No, I don't think he's offering you a method of just getting a pump, saying that you should be training harder, but then just offering you a method on how to get a pump. I don't think so. Hamza was trying to tell you how to take your sets to failure. That's what I got from it.
What he does. All of that shit about saying, no pain, no gain, push through it. All of that Mike Menzer thing. All of that was aligned with this. It was...
I don't know too much about the Mike Menzer stuff, you know what I'm saying? No pain, no gain. Well, if you're going in the gym, and again, you're lifting a dumbbell, and your program says, do 15 reps, stop, wait 30 seconds, go back, do another 15 reps, stop, and that 15 reps, you have like a 10-pound weight on that, you might just be spinning your wheels, and therefore you will be like this. But if you actually pushed yourself, use the appropriate weight, you're going to feel pain in your muscle. So I'm not really sure. Maybe NH only does, I don't know, strength training, where you're only doing like 2 reps, 3 reps, 4 reps. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a special kind of person. But does it not make sense that if you're pushing yourself to failure on every set, you're going to be uncomfortable and therefore your face is going to look like this? I mean, I've shown you videos in the past where I'm training. Look, I mean, I'm genuinely training and you're looking at my face. And my face is like, I'm in pain and I'm pushing through the set. So I'm very confused by this.
Align with saying things that men like to hear to get them to train a certain way, even if that certain way is not proven to be accurate or even relevant for hypertrophy. But we're going to see that. I'm going to expand more on that when we get to step 5, the 5th reason why you're not getting muscles. There is actually a fake step 5, and that is sleep. I don't spend much time on it, so I won't either, but he does say that sleep is not that important for muscle growth, to which I agree to an extent. What I want to say, however, is that just because you can...
I would disagree. Just like your calorie intake is, well, should be directly dependent on your training, so should your sleep. There was a point in time where I would train like maybe 3 or 4 hours a day. I was doing my cardio, I was doing my bodybuilding, I was completely shredded. So every vein in my body, the muscles were popping out. I'd walk down the street and people would be like, "What are you on?" You know what I'm saying? And during those days, I went to like maybe 11 hours of sleep. I would need to sleep because of how hard I trained. My body clearly needed to sleep for a reason, right? It was tired. It needed to recuperate and fix the problems that I was creating through my training, right? Because again, training that intensely is not necessarily normal. So if you're training hard, you're going to be tired. When I leave the gym and I'm done training, I do not have all the energy in the world. I am exhausted. So if you leave the gym and you feel like light on your feet and you're happy and it's like, oh, the sun's out and it's like, oh, let me go pick some flowers and I'm happy, I don't think you trained hard enough. You should be walking out of that gym, in my personal opinion, like this. Whew, and now maybe you need a coffee in order to continue your day. You know what I'm saying? So that's my opinion. I truly believe that sleep is a very, very important part of your training, recuperation, your building, as well as everything else that NH goes on to say.
And gain muscle with subpar sleep does not mean that you should have a shitty sleep schedule. Sleep is very important for cognitive abilities, to regulate your mood, for hormones, and most importantly, for overall health. It decreases the risk of disease like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, it decreases the risk of heart attacks, etc. So please get your sleep. I know I'm also the type of guy who is going to skim an hour or two because I want to make an extra video. It's not a good thing. That grind set nonsense of if you sleep 1 less hour, you have one more hour to grind. Yeah, that's good, but it also is going to sap your vitality down the line. So don't do that shit. In that section,
I agree. It's going to sap your vitality. You're not going to be able to train hard enough where the building actually happens in the gym. You're not going to be able to train hard enough if you are underslept. Therefore, sleep is extremely important in order to push and then also to repair. It's a cycle. It's similar to what he said in the beginning, right? With the clay, with the calories. Well, it's directly correlated. Sleep, exercise. You need to sleep to repair and build, right? Just like you need the calories, he was saying, to build. So your intensity should be, your sleep and calories, in my opinion, should be directly correlated to your intensity.
there was also a point where Hamza was filming himself shirtless in a club. So I think he was trying to make the point that it's possible to go clubbing and to make gains. That is also where I want to come back on what I said previously about him not being a Z's copycat, because who goes to a club shirtless? I find it pathetic to an extent. If I saw a guy shirtless in a club, I wouldn't look at him and think, wow, that's an alpha. I would think, well, that guy's either a weirdo on MDMA or he's trying way too hard to.
I agree with what he said. In fact, I mentioned in the last video that, Hamza said sleep is not that important. And I said, well, maybe if you're on drugs, maybe sleep's not that important. And so I mentioned that it's very likely that a lot of the people you see who don't sleep and make gains, because he used a terrible example, Hamza used a terrible example of people, oh, you see those people in school and they're, they party till 4 a.m. and they're drinking and they're doing drugs, but they make gains. Yeah, maybe they're on steroids. You know what I'm saying? It's not because they can just magically run their bodies into the ground and still make gains. No. You already said they're on drugs, right? So that's my personal opinion. And I agree. If I saw a guy in a club without his shirt on, I would think, man, this guy needs attention. And that makes him not somebody I should really be looking up to.
Like his favorite fitness influencer. Just my 2 cents, it might just be because I am an old fart and I hate clubs with a passion. Now, let's move.
I'm not like a huge fan of clubs either. I'm with the old farts team.
Move on to point number 5. The 5th reason why you're not getting muscles, according to Hamza, is because you don't progressively overload. And this is when we are starting to see the limitations of Hamza's understanding of training.
I didn't know that Hamza had a cult. I mean, I don't fall for his charisma because I feel like he's probably a younger person who doesn't have much life experience, who is followed by even younger people who don't have much experience, and therefore they will think that he has a lot of experience. But I don't fall for that. I think it's because I'm older and I've been around for a while. I didn't know he had a cult following, but I guess he does. I think it's over 1 million subscribers. And actually, yeah, I did mention in my video, I can't believe this guy has so many subscribers and is giving out such bad information, in my personal opinion. I remember thinking, and even saying, oh, I think he should be doing something right, to have 1 million followers, but maybe not, so I have to agree. Yeah, be careful who you listen to.
And make you understand that you have to use your critical thinking skills, because if you don't, you're going to follow his advice for progressive overload, which starts next. Hamza tells you that many people approach progressive overload from an emotional perspective of trying to put as much weight on the bar as possible, and they come in and they say, okay, today I want to lift this, and that's what they'll lift, which is, of course, absolutely idiotic, because it leads to plateau.
Right, exactly. To just come into the gym with no plan and just be like, today I want to lift this, and next time I want to lift this, not helping you. You need to have a plan.
And it leads to frustration. So Hamza's solution is to pick an exercise, then select a rep range and try to progress within that rep range. So far, so good. Excellent advice. Even better than most fitness YouTubers that are mainstream. The issue is with what follows. Hamza then tells you that 10 to 15 is the best rep range for hypertrophy and that you should never go below 8.
If you really want to build muscle, don't do anything underneath 8 reps. Anything 8 reps is actually a little bit too heavy.
You lost me, bro. You lost me. It was going so well. There was nuances. There were red flags of the I'm not like the other fitness YouTubers shit. But then this 8 is too high for hypertrophy and 10 to 15 is the best rep range.
All right, so let me clarify something. NH is saying 8 is not too low for hypertrophy training, and apparently Hamza said 8 is too low. Like, you shouldn't be going below 8 or below. You should be between 10 and 15. I never once said you can't, right? I'm not saying you can't, but I do agree that 8 is pretty low. It depends on your goals. For hypertrophy training, I do believe, for the way I train and the way I've been training, 12 reps is perfect for me. It leaves my joints feeling good. It leaves my tendons feeling good. It leaves my entire body feeling good. I can do enough sets to the point where I can't continually do the same weight or the same, or keep going up in sets. So you're slowly breaking yourself down, and I'm taking every set to absolute failure, right? So do I feel like I need 8 reps? No, because I feel like for a majority of the movements I do, 8 reps is just too heavy for what I want to do. Does that mean you can't do 8 reps? Of course not. Everybody trains different. So do you have injuries? Are you older? Are you younger? All that's going to depend. And therefore, there is no blanket you can't do 8 reps, of course. But from my experience, look at my channel. If you guys, I've been accused by you guys of being on steroids, right? So clearly you guys like my results. If you like my results that you've seen me obtain on the channel, well, that was built between a 12 and 15 rep range. Okay? And I continue to use that. Does that mean that I'm not adding weight to the bar? No. If all of a sudden, personally, this is the way I train. If I hit 13, 14, 15 reps, well, now I'm increasing the weight because I'm trying to progressively overload. So therefore, I'm taking every set to failure, and I'm constantly increasing the weight in order to get to a place that is pushing me hard enough, right? So if you're leaving reps in the tank, that might be a different story, but I think 12 to 15 reps is great. 10 to 15 reps, great. 8 is starting to get heavy for me. What type of training does NH do? I believe he's mostly focused on strength. Could be wrong because I don't follow his channel that closely. But I believe he's mostly focused on strength. Hypertrophy and strength, two different things. I believe he's doing more full body movements, more compound movements. I like to hit more accessory movements. So if I like to do that, there's going to be a difference in rep ranges there. So keep that in mind.
Hamza claims to not watch YouTube Fitness, and I think that this is the proof that he should. You see, when you end up thinking that you know everything, like 10 to 15 is the best rep range, you stop learning. And as a man, that is the death of your progression. You're going to stagnate forever.
I agree. You'll stop learning if you think, oh, this is what you need to do. As your training progresses, you're going to have to implement different things as you go forward. Certain movements that you used to not be able to do, now you will need to do. Certain rep ranges that you couldn't do back in the day, now you might need to do. As your training progresses, you are changing, and therefore you will have to implement different things. So for me, right now, I can completely agree that 10 to 15, like Hamza said, is great. Does that mean it will always be like that? No. But for people like Hamza, or people like me, that might be ideal at the moment. And keep in mind, if you're newer, should you be doing 8 reps? Probably not. And if you're older, even if you've been training, if you're older, should you be doing 8 reps? No, you really shouldn't. Or even if you're old and new, you really shouldn't, in my personal opinion, because it might be too heavy for you. So you can get enough volume, depending on how you structure your workout, in the 10 to 15 rep range, enough volume to really be able to get an insanely good workout, build some solid muscle and strength at the same time by doing that. But yes, of course, as you progress, your goals will change, your body will change, your thinking will change, you'll realize certain things need to change in order to keep progressing. So if that's what NH is trying to say, I 100% agree.
You should always look at rep ranges as opportunities to progress. If you limit yourself to only 1 or you never go below 8, you are going to sabotage your gains. That actually might be the reason why you're not putting on muscle. And that is also to me a dead giveaway that both Hamza's understanding of intensity and rep ranges is actually really shallow. Because when you encourage people to go beyond failure on 10 to 15 reps, and you tell them, oh, when you get 15 reps, you can get 2 more. Yeah, you can get 2 more. You know why? It's because 15 reps is not a relevant rep range at this point. So you can...
All right, so I don't know what people NH is talking about, but I increase my weight by a per pound basis. If I am in a 12 rep range, I cannot do more than 12. I'm dying by rep 12. So that might be different compared to the people he's talking about right now, where he's saying that it's an irrelevant rep range because you'd still be able to push yourself past the 12. I make sure I can't do that.
You can grind more reps. This is a clear sign that the weight and the load that you're using is not charging to the muscle. When you discourage people from doing something like a 6 to 10, what you're doing is you're not promoting intense training. You're doing the exact opposite.
I don't know. Because you have many people who can't do a 6 rep range. You have many people who can't do a 6. When you lower the reps, most of the time, the weight is heavier. So you might not be able to handle a 6 rep range, an 8 rep range. You might not be able to handle that. Maybe after training for a long time, you might want to try that. But I remember I had a buddy who was older. He was in his 40s, and he was listening to people tell him, yeah, do an 8 rep range on chest press, and he went and he ripped a tendon in his shoulder or something. He was older. He needed to do a higher rep range. So you have to understand that, yes, implementing things is good, testing things out is good, but I really feel that one of the most ideal rep ranges to do for a large majority of training is going to be like between a 10 and 15. I've seen plenty of great progress with that. In the future, if I need to change that, of course I will. But keep in mind, you might not be capable depending on what your goals are and how you're training.
You're promoting a type of intensity that is correlated with the pump, but something like a 6 to 10 represents actually much greater intensity than a 10 to 15 because you...
I don't believe a 10 to 15 rep range is a pump. again, I take them to failure, right? So I'm hitting 12 reps and like my face is doing that face. I'm hurting at this point. My arms are shaking and I can't do anymore, depending on the exercise, right? So just take all your sets to failure and push as intensely as possible in a rep range that you're comfortable with. That's the best I can give you to keep it simple.
You would be using more relevant weight, meaning also that you would get to actual mechanical and muscular failure. At some point, to progress consistently, you need to expose the muscle to heavy loads. I absolutely agree with him that doing a 1 rep max is useless for hypertrophy. 2 rep maxes, 3 rep maxes as well. If it's 90% of your training, you're doing something wrong. I made a video about that in the past. Most of your rep ranges should be in the 6 to 15 rep range. 6 to 15, not 10 to 15. 10 to 15 is way too small because it's not including enough relevant intensity rep range.
It has to do with the body part that you're working, right? You might be able to do, a six rep squat when 6 reps on, a bicep curl might be too hard. It depends on the body, on the body part you're training. It depends on your goals. It depends on how your body is going to react to the training. Again, we're all individuals. You don't want to hurt yourself and then you can't train. I've seen amazing results using a 12 rep range.
Because truly, saying that 8 reps is too heavy is not just dumb. It also leads to plateaus. And Hamza's advice again is to help you avoid plateaus so as to make sure that you gain muscle. So that's also counterintuitive.
And again, I'll just say, I take every set to failure. So again, that 8 rep range is not leaving anything in the tank, or that 12 rep range is not leaving anything in the tank. So I'm pushing very intensely. And if I see I can go now past that certain rep range, I crush myself back into that rep range by adding more weight.
It's very easy to understand. Focusing on reps instead of weight on the bar eventually stops working, just like focusing on weight on the bar instead of reps also stops working. You have to use both. Hamza told you to be more nuanced and not to be black and white. He should apply the same advice.
But at the same time, I don't expect you to...
I agree. Make sure, again, I mentioned that last video, everything we're talking about, reps, sets, all this stuff, different exercises, they're all tools. And you need to use different tools at different times. If at one point you see that one tool is not working anymore the way it should, maybe you need a more aggressive tool. Therefore, you switch something out, change things around, and stuff like that. Fantastic advice by NH.
Not the case. And by doing that, actually, he resembles the fitness YouTubers, the mainstream fitness YouTubers that he criticizes, because he starts to give absolute advice that are not going to align with what his subscribers need to hear.
Right, you should never give absolute advice, and I try my best to never give absolute advice and remind you all that you need to test things out for yourself, man. Everyone's goals are different and everybody's bodies are different. So, is the information that Hamza giving not beneficial? I think it's beneficial, but I think you as a viewer also have to remember that you can't just take one person's word and run with it and think it's going to be like perfect. You know what I'm saying? It makes no sense to do that. So you as a viewer need to know when you need to cut. You as a viewer also need to know whether you should be listening in absolutes or not. Does that make sense? A responsibility falls on you, the person watching the video. Is what is being said for your ears or not? Ask yourself that. And test things out to see whether something works out in your position or not.
And something that struck me in that vein was the fact that he claimed that people would see immediate results within 2 weeks if they switched to 10 to 15.
If you do the 10 to 15, just give it a try. You'll be like, fuck, I can see the growth in a couple of weeks.
Would you see immediate results if you jumped from 10 to 15? I think you would. But let me tell you why. If Hamza was trying like a 4 rep range, 5 rep range, and then all of a sudden he jumped from 10 to 15, well, he jumped from a rep range that was making him stronger to a rep range that is going to exhaust his muscle. Okay? The 10 to 15, more volume, which pushed him more, rather than doing maybe a couple of small sets of like a 4 rep range or something like that. And on top of that, when you're doing a higher rep range, you are getting more blood into the muscle. You're using it more. It's a more ideal rep range for blood flow. So you are getting more of a pump. I'm not saying it is just a pump style of training. Not if you're pushing yourself to failure. But you have to understand that if you're training in low reps, you're going to see a huge difference if you jump from low to high. There is a difference between strength training and hypertrophy training, a huge difference. You're not going to see the same results if in a lower rep range. So depending on the rep range Hamza was in, and then he jumped to the higher rep range, the more appropriate rep range for his goal, yes, you will see results, and you will see them very quickly. Immediately, in fact, because you're automatically going to see your muscle is working more volume, more blood flow, and you're going to see it become engorged with blood faster. So is that a result? Yeah, that's a result. Instead of just doing 4 hard reps, you're doing 12 hard reps, 15 hard reps. You're going to see more visually. So yeah, you can see more very, very quickly. Even if it's not actual physical mass results, you'll see it in the outcome as far as the blood flow, as far as the veins popping out, and also as far as the soreness of your muscle. You're going to get more sore. So yeah, it's not just a pump workout, but you will see more because it's a higher rep range.
I hope you know that that's bogus. You will never see visible muscular results in 2 weeks because you change the rep range. It's not how that works.
Right, maybe not visual muscular results in as far as muscle growing, but as far growing because of it building and repairing muscle. But in terms of the way your muscle reacts to the training, it can absolutely look different. Absolutely look different. Huge difference when training in a higher rep range than a lower rep range. And that's why you have the difference between hypertrophy training and strength training.
Range is a parameter for progression, not the progression itself. And that's not enough time to grow. And the video is peppered of him saying, hey, all of these other guys are lying to you, but I'm the one telling the truth. Really? How do we know that? Because from what I understand...
I agree. It is peppered, that his video is peppered with him saying, everybody else is lying, I'm the one telling the truth. Listen, man. Yeah, maybe if you watch the YouTube fitness channels that you do watch, even though you're claiming not to watch them, if you watch those channels, maybe that would be the case. But hey, listen, there's tons of other channels out there. Tons. And I'm sure he knows he's not the only one giving you good advice, because he got his advice from somewhere, right? And it certainly wasn't from sitting down and doing his own research. He got it from someone else on YouTube.
50% of the advice of the video is bogus. That comes from me. You can mistrust me. What I want you to do is also mistrust him. Instead of just taking one guy and saying, okay, this is my savior, and following him blindly, use your critical thinking skills.
I agree.
This is what Hamza's conclusion should have been. But instead, no. He wants you to have him as your only one. He wants to replace fitness YouTubers. It's the only thing I can gather from his attitude towards fitness in public. He seems to truly believe that he knows better than the rest of us.
Everyone is an individual. You have to have critical thinking, just like he's mentioning, and not everything will work for everybody the same way. And for your goals. Your goals are huge, right? You have to account for your goals.
None of them would ever tell you to never go below 8 reps, ever, because that is garbage advice. Overall, when taking advice...
Again, just want to say, I would never tell you never to go beyond 8 reps. I'm simply telling you what worked for me. And it also depends on the types of training, because remember, a squat is not the same thing as a wrist curl, as a bicep curl, as a row. All different exercises, therefore, you might need different ranges for all those exercises. All right, so very, very valuable information coming from NH. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I hope these videos are helping you. I do believe they are. And I look forward to seeing you guys at the next video. Thank you very much, and talk to you guys soon.